Get with me. I deal with reality. Loosen your mind to the truth and don't get mad at me. No politician can give you peace. If you trust Jesus, why do you vote for a beast? Emancipation is long overdue, so it becomes procrastination, because freedom is within you. For some reason we think we're free, so we'll never be, because we haven't recognized slavery. You still a slave, look at how you behave, debating on where and when and how and what master gave.
Hello everybody, welcome to This Week in Tyranny, an episode about authoritarianism, government overreach, and global injustice. My name is Conrad Rogas, I am your host, and today is February 5th. This will be episode 9 of This Week in Tyranny. And this episode, it will be serious, hard-hitting, and definitely not for kids. So if you're approaching this episode, I hope you're in the mind state to get ready for some hard-hitting stuff, not just the content, but what I will be saying. There's definitely going to be profanity and stuff like that, so it's not family-friendly at all. But just that being said, let's begin. I'd like to remind you, of course, that if tyranny is not at your doorstep, that's because there's someone in the street keeping it at bay. And Tyre Nichols did die in the street as a result of that tyranny. And since this episode will be about Tyre Nichols and his untimely death, I'd like to begin with my condolences to his mom, to his family, and a brief moment of silence for him before I begin. Thank you for joining me today. So let's begin. So this story, if you're not aware, to the degree that you are aware, Tyre Nichols was a 29-year-old man who was stopped. It was a traffic stop for alleged reckless driving, dragged out of the car by police, and then what went on and was caught on video. This happened on January 7th, I believe, January 7th, 2023. But the video just came out last week. So this is a news story, and this video I would like to begin by responding. I listened to the mainstream media coverage, and I focused my time listening to alternative media researchers talking about this. So I'll address that, address the different individuals, address the talking points I've heard, different things I've heard being said. I'll say my own piece, and then I'll break down the video that was released of what happened to Tyre Nichols. And then I'll talk about tyranny all throughout. These researchers, I'm not going to address their comments separately, like breaking it down and contradicting this and that, because I don't want to make my name off of like denigrating other researchers' work. So I'm going to list off the people that I have listened to, and then I'll address some of the talking points. I don't want to make this about infighting, trying to get some views or get a name off of talking about what this person and that person said. That being said, I listened to Tucker Carlson, Charlie Kirk, Mike Adams, Harrison Smith, Owen Schroyer, Brandon House, with Daniel Greenfield, and then I also listened to a little bit of what Van Jones was saying from CNN, and of course what Joe Biden said, the president said about it. And let's just get Joe Biden over with. What he said when this happened, he tweeted, of course. Like so many, I was outraged and deeply pained to see the horrific video of the beating that resulted in Tyre Nichols' death, he said. It is yet another painful reminder of the profound fear and trauma, the pain, and the exhaustion that Black and brown Americans experience every single day. He's correct. He's not wrong about anything he said, but it's just such weak deflection. It's by saying that Black and brown Americans experience every single day. It's like saying, oh, I'm very sorry about what they did to you. I'm very sorry that what that guy made us do. Well, what I mean by that is he's the head of this institution. He's the commander-in-chief of the military. He's presiding over this whole the government system, and I'll address the talking point about this not being an institutional problem, that this is just a couple of rogue cops. And it's such deflection and trying to dodge guilt, that black and brown Americans experience every single day. No, this is the institution of police as a whole. It's like, I'm sorry, but it's not me. No, yes, you. Um, let's go to the first point I've heard, that this is not representative of the cops I know. This is what I've heard being said. This is nothing like the cops that I know. And I see what you're saying. I understand that there's police all over the country that don't act like this. I know what you're saying. But when you said this isn't like the people I know, well, neither are serial killers. People, anytime there's a story about Jeffrey Dahmer, Ted Bundy, they're always like, "Oh, he was nothing like that. That's not the person I know." Everybody that goes and commits these crimes, you get their family, their friends saying, "Oh, that's not the person I knew," right? Because they're part of a cult. These police officers are part of a cult, and they see you as being outside of the cult. So what you know is not the totality. What you know is what they allow you to know. And as they do in cults, they're isolated into us versus them mentality, and they only share their true mentality with their own, that psychopathic satanic mentality. And I won't go too far into that, but if you want to go into that, you should read this essay called Confessions of a Former Bastard Cop by a former police officer, that talks about how this is when you go through the academy and they show you all the videos of the traffic stops where a cop gets killed, and they keep bombarding you with fear that, oh, your life is in danger every day. And then they begin to see themselves as like this small group, and everybody else are like these predators. They think these people are like a criminal predator class, and they're against them, so they take on this very tribal, aggressive, violent mentality. So when you say this isn't representative of the cops you know, it's because you don't actually know. Another thing I heard, this was worse than George Floyd. Owen Schroyer said this. He said that if it was a scale of 1 to 10, George Floyd was like a 1. And when I heard this, I'm just shaking my head. You're gonna rank. This just happened. You're talking about somebody being beaten and killed in the street, and you're gonna talk about 1 to 10 like you're ranking a recipe or something. Just come on. And this is why the alternative media is failing miserably, because it just comes off as dehumanizing and cold and insensitive. It comes off like you don't really want to reach black men and women as an audience, as people you're talking to. Like, at least by meeting them halfway, showing a little bit of respect, You're going to say this was like a 10 and this was a 1. I understand what you're saying about the brutality of this video, and if be patient, I'm going to break it down. Like, this will be a long video, but I wanted to address the comments first because it's going to put the whole thing into perspective. And I get that the extent of the video, the brutality of it, was a really severe high level. I know, but you're saying 1 to 10. This wasn't like this. This was way worse. So why is the reaction like this? And it's just not the way to go about it. It's like you're thinking about your talking points and what you're gonna say, instead of dedicating your time to it and your attention to it like a real journalist, Because if you're speaking the truth, then you should want everybody to hear it, right? Then also, related to that, looking for political hypocrisy in the reaction. Like I mentioned, that the George Floyd video, when it came out, it wasn't this bad, apparently, right? That it wasn't this bad, but the reaction was way worse. There was rioting and looting. So they're basically fishing for the hypocrisy, because these cops were black. It was 5 black men and not a white man. So what's being implied or outwardly said by some of these media members is, oh, if it was 5 white cops, then for sure there would be burning and rioting and looting in the street. That's what they're saying. And again, this is not the way to go about it. And yes, there is less uproar about it. There is less of noise about it, but that's because it's a more complicated situation. It does have to do with race. It's a more complicated situation because these were 5 cops who were the same skin color as the victim. So yeah, that makes it more complicated, because it makes us look at the underlying psychological and mental factors and issues, right? There's these inner dynamics, and it forces us to take a look at self-hatred, which I'm going to talk about more. But looking for this and just trying to it's like you're trying to downplay the event. You're trying to downplay the impact of the crime. Can you just talk about the crime? There's plenty to talk about just with the crime itself. You don't have to talk about liberal hiring policies or affirmative action. You don't have to talk about Black Lives Matter, but related to that, blaming liberal hiring practices and blaming the defund the police movement. Basically what this means is that people are saying that, well, these cops are being more aggressive because one of them was an affirmative action hire, meaning the liberal hiring practices got some of these cops that otherwise, if we didn't live in such a woke liberal culture, then those guys wouldn't have got hired, right? It would have been more of the old school cops. Yeah, he might be racist a little bit, but he wouldn't have killed him in the street. That's the talking point that I'm responding to. That if these bad cops weren't hired, we'd have some more moral cops who wouldn't do this. And that's just not true. That if we did have those old school cops, this just wouldn't have been caught on camera. It's not that these cops were different qualitatively. They were different in quantity. They were just a lot more stupid. They were just a lot more brazen in the way they did this. Yeah. What you're talking about with, the cops 20 years ago wouldn't have done this. They just wouldn't have done it on camera, and they wouldn't have done it in such a really low, stupid way, right? They would be more intelligent. But don't get it twisted. These institutions breed psychopaths. They do. They breed psychopaths as a mentality of being callous, of not having any sympathy, not downplaying the humanity, ignoring the humanity of the people you're doing the damage to. And I know this unit was a more militarized unit. I heard there was a unit called Scorpion, and they're not your regular cops that will pull you over in your neighborhood. So I'm aware of that this is like this is a tactical division. But that's going to happen eventually as the government becomes more totalitarian. So you're defending police as an institution, but this is what's going to happen regardless of the hiring practices. As the voice of freedom is going to get louder, which it is because the conditions are going to get worse, the police is going to become more militarized anyway. So when you're defending them, you're really just, cutting your own arm off. This is not the way to go about it. What else I heard being said? Oh, well, what about abortion and what about gang violence as being issues that plague the black community more than police brutality, right? That abortion kills this many black lives and gang violence kills this many, but there's not so much noise about it. And this is flawed. This is an actual logical fallacy, because those things, abortion and gang violence, although they take out way more lives than police brutality, they kill way more. That's different because those are different issues where those individuals have the free will choice. They're choosing that. Don't get it twisted. This is somebody getting dragged out of their car who did not hurt anybody, getting beaten, tortured, and killed in the street. And that's way different. So what about abortion and gang violence? What does it have to do with anything? Those are issues that have to be addressed, yeah. But this is the immediate issue that has to be addressed. This is the most immediate threat. And that's why I talk about the police so much, because you can reform any other piece of it. You try to get something done, and you can get taken, and you can get killed, sprayed, brutalized in the street, and you're not going to do anything about it. So you should listen to these people when they're telling you about this. Instead of worrying about your race against their race, worry about your individual rights, because race isn't going to matter soon. It still matters to a large degree in this nation. I don't get why people want to deny that so much. Like, yeah, it matters in America. But what matters way more is that if this can be done to him, it could be done to you. And it has been done to you. It's just usually not on body cam, because usually the other psychopaths who will do this to a white person, they're not gonna get caught like this. You know, this is just idiots. Another thing I heard being said, they're just attacking the police to tear down America and freedom, to tear down the American way of life. And the American way of life has already been torn down. It was torn down by the time I got here, many years ago. And I understand that there's a movement like against the police and against the church, against just these basic fundamental conservative ideals. I understand the cultural Marxist agenda. Yes, all that stuff is there. The migrant border stuff is there. I'm not saying those things don't exist, but that does not mean you're supposed to cling to the shipwreck, to America the Beautiful, because America the Beautiful is gone. It was gone a long time ago with the Federal Reserve and all this stuff 100 years ago that nobody cared about, because they still had their white picket fence and they didn't stand up. Nobody's caring about standing up and maybe standing up against somebody that looks exactly like you, that protects your community, but talking about their immorality and calling them out. You're supposed to see this from down the road, like how I say the motto of this show. If it's not at your doorstep, it's because it's in the street and somebody's there in the street keeping it at bay, but that's not you. You're sitting on the couch. And I'm not saying this to, all the viewers, but this is what basically the older generation that was already here in this country, this is what they allowed to happen. And then the hippies, the counterculture, they let it go. And now we have this. And then I also heard being said, now you're not going to be able to recruit good cops anymore. And the police is going to be even worse and worse, like these guys, like these 5 cops that killed him. And they're saying that the more you talk about how immoral and bad the police are, the less people are going to want to join the institutions. So then the only people that are going to be police officers are going to be these killers and these psychopaths like these 5 cops. And maybe that's what needs to happen. The more good cops quit their job, the better off we're going to be. All good cops should quit their job, and that way we'll see them for the gang that they are. They are that violent street gang. This is cartel behavior. I've seen the cartel videos. I've seen a lot of them with them flailing people, just start carving a piece of them, cutting their hands off. All these videos I've seen of the cartel executions and torture, and this is just down the street from that. And this is who these people are. That's who they act like. And I think the people talking about this, they haven't seen that. They haven't looked at all that. And they don't know what a gang looks like. They haven't been around gangs. They've only been around their own. They've been in this sheltered environment where bad people is something you hear about. They never seen this happen, right? Whatever. If the police has to get more federalized, then let's go. And we're ready to go to war with them, because we got a whole lot of guns and we got the will. And I'll talk about the strength we have. I'll talk about the cowardice and weakness of these cops. I can't wait to get to that. Let me just address these researchers first. These researchers sound like they haven't actually viewed all the footage, or they haven't given it their full attention, because there's no compassion. They're completely callous, Excuse me, I was looking at my recording software. They're completely disconnected from it. I'm not saying you got to get emotional like me, because there's a way to go about this in a cold, systematic way. That's cool. But it's really like you're thinking about what you're going to say and not dedicating it to your time. You're not dedicating your time to it like a journalist is supposed to. So let's fully analyze this, go through the journalistic process, because I haven't even seen this being done. The actual footage, all 4 videos that so far have been released by the Memphis Police Department, which you could view, it shows a hunt. This is like an animalistic craze of violence. This is like a pack of lions. That's how they act. If you look at all the videos, anybody should see this. Even if you haven't seen a lot of Animal Planet, if you haven't seen the cartel execution videos, you will see that they act like a pack of animals, the people who killed this man. And their commands and their behavior shows that they are bloodthirsty. And how, I'll break it down. So this is a breakdown of the video. Here's how it starts. We've got a normal traffic stop. They got a car stop. Tyre Nichols is in a car in the left turn lane of a big major intersection. So right away they go to the car, open the door. They tell him to get out, secure his arm, pull him out of the car. And then they have him on the ground with one arm, and he's kind of not fully on his stomach, but he's halfway there. He's laying on the ground though. So at that point the encounter is over. The video should end right there, because if you have somebody on the ground with an arm, you don't even need to have rudimentary MMA training. You got him. It should end right there. You could pull his arm, handcuff him, and it's done right there. But that's not what happened, because they wanted to escalate this. That's why this is not just a case of murder in the street. This is a case of sadism and torture, right? Broad day. And there was two of them, but even just one of them, if you've got one arm and you've got him on the ground, it's over. He's not going to do anything else. You could pull that arm back, secure it, and it'll be that. And before that we even go there was a way to get him to get out of the car by his free will choice, even if you draw your weapon on him. But instead you want to start pushing and pulling, and that's just a real stupid idea, because who's to say that you're coming out? This isn't even a marked police car. These are Dodge Chargers with some lights, okay? And he's coming up to the driver's side window. A normal human being is gonna think self-defense. Who are you for this person that you want to push and pull, start putting hands on them, for them to respect you as this god that he can't touch you? No, it's self-defense. That's what Tyre Nichols did, and it's very good that he did this. Unfortunately, it resulted in his death, and this is a really sad story, but we've got to talk about this. So they start with his arm, with one arm secured like this. He's holding it. There's two cops there so far, and they yell at him, telling him to surrender both of his arms. They start yelling at him, "Oh, get on the ground!" And he's saying, "I am on the ground." And what they do here is they half-ass their actions. It's half-assed behavior. Like I said, you could get that other arm and it could be done right there. But they want to keep yelling at him because they either want to verbally get him to surrender to them fully, right? Satisfy their ill desire for control and domination. But what they really want is for him to resist more so that they can hurt him. Right? There's definitely a bloodlust here. And if you watch the video, you'll see this. Then they start beating and pepper spraying him, right in the face, right there, with pepper spray. But he actually manages to get up. So they step back and they tase him. They deploy the taser. And then he rips his shirt off and continues to run. And they're like, oh shit. There's a delayed reaction until they start running. Yeah, motherfuckers, that's what happens. They were surprised. They're marveling. They thought he was just going to fall down. This is what happens when somebody's fighting for their life. That's how you know you're doing something immoral. Because this person didn't hurt anybody. And if it comes out that he did, okay, but it's not like he just killed somebody or ran somebody over. You're saying it's reckless driving, but this is still a victimless crime, which is no crime at all. You just basically took this man out of his day, and you're imposing all these commands on him, and all of a sudden you're escalating it to tasing him and pepper spraying him. He's fighting for his life at this point. And they're surprised that he didn't just fall down and give up. And then at a later location, a secondary location, as he ran away, he was actually able to run away from them. And some other cops, they caught him, and then they're starting to hold his arms. They're holding his arms back like this, right, as he's standing up. And then one of them is punching him as hard as he can, hitting him with haymakers, in their own words, with his palm like this, with the inside of his fist, because he's a coward. He's not going to even hit him with his fist, because you can hurt your hand. And, I don't know if you could see, but be a man. Use your fists, But no, his delicate little hands, he's gonna hit him like this. Bunch of fucking cowards. Doesn't even know how to punch. And he does this. He hits him as hard as he can until he falls down. This is like 4 or 5 hits, as hard as he can, like this. So as he's on the ground, they threaten to break his arm right away. He said, "I'm gonna break your shit." That's what he says. And then one of the cops hits him with a baton as hard as he can a few times until he's on the ground. They're still holding his arms back, and then they pepper spray him in the face directly from like 18 inches away, like a foot away, as they hold his hands. And then another one of the cops kicks him in the face as hard as he can, like a football punt, right to the face as he's on the ground. And he actually starts limping. He hurts his leg in the process of how hard he kicked him. And you know, that level of aggression comes directly from how weak and cowardly they are. These are real pieces of shit, you know, real pieces of trash. And that's why they're so cruel and brutal, because they're doing all this and it's not having any effect. Because this man's fighting for his life. He's much stronger than they are. And these guys are lifelong pussies and cowards, right? These cops. So, and they're all... One of them is like whining about the pepper spray got in his eyes, spraying water in his eyes, limping from hurting his leg. It's like just a bunch of clowns, like these clumsy dudes just stumbling over themselves, overweight, you know, they're out of breath, like they just ran 100 miles. One of the guys looking for his glasses. And you see the level of brutality. It's like they really view their victim as like an animal, and they just keep hitting the animal, and they're like, "Oh, why are you still up?" That's what it is. That's that level of brutality. So then 2 EMTs show up, like so-called paramedics. They show up, and as they show up and get to looking at Tyre Nichols on the ground, the cops are like start sharing the stories of the chase. They're like, "Oh, where were you? Oh, yeah, we were over there." And the EMTs, there's no urgency at all, right? The paramedics, no urgency at all. You could tell it's like they're looking at this like they think this person's like a piece of trash. You could see the contempt in their actions. They're not even really trying to touch him, or they don't care about his health at all. And just like the cops, they think they're like human garbage collectors. They view us as garbage, as trash. And you could see this in their mannerisms. And they laugh about this, the cops, when they're talking about like the chase. One of the guys is like, "Yeah, we took turns giving him pieces as in combinations." They're talking about how much they were hitting him and he was still alive and fighting. And then the other cops are like, "Oh, we just gave him some over there." The 2 that were by the original traffic stop location. And it's just so disgusting. They're talking about it like it's a game, like literally they were just playing tag or something, and they're sharing the stories. And it's, you could tell these guys are young, they're super ignorant, they're stupid, they got no conscience at all. And then who shows up is then the big fish shows up, the experienced cop. And this is, you could tell he's in his 50s, this cop. He shows up, who wasn't at the scene, and then they're explaining themselves to him. By the way, they start lying, you know, saying, "Oh, he reached for my gun, this and that." They're just doing explanations. It's probably not even to convince the cops, probably just for the camera and the record. But they do this, the professional liars that they are. And the experienced cop, the I don't know if he's a chief, but whatever, the high-ranking cop, is listening to them, like real serious look on his face. This guy's seen a lot, you know, and he's really emotionless. And then he goes over to Tyre Nichols on the ground as they made him sit up on the car, where you could see like his face is all swollen. This guy's like dying by the car, and he starts saying to him like, "What'd you have? What'd you have?" Basically like, what was the reason that he run? They're looking for drugs. You know, they just beat this man to death, and they're thinking about finding a baggie or something, like as if that was something to justify them doing this to a person. And then he's telling, as he's trying to struggle, you know, struggling to breathe, to move, he's like, "You can't go nowhere. You can't go nowhere." Just taunting him like a sadist, psychopath, taunting his victim about how they won't get anywhere and they won't escape them. You know, this guy's just a real fucking piece of work, and they will be dealt with. And You know, the most barbaric violence in history is always done by people that look similar to you. And that's why race does play a part in this, because it has to come from self hatred. All these black officers that did this to him, they all hate themselves. And they all have bought the racism so much. They really hate themselves. You to some level you have to hate yourself just to be a cop, just to follow orders. But them to do this, to a young black man like them, you could just tell they think they're trash. They know they're trash inherently. And the most barbaric violence in history is always done by people that look similar to you. And history shows that to be true. From in Poland, where I'm from, the worst, most brutal, barbaric, savage crimes were not done by the Nazis, and not even by the Soviet occupation, which was, real bad too. It was worse. It was in Volyn, right, where 50 to 200,000 Polish people were slaughtered over a period of time by Ukrainian people, like a wave of nationalism from Ukrainian people who were living. We were living together, right? These were our neighbors, and there's a lot of bullshit about this, a bullshit nationalism that Ukrainian people are so much different than Polish people, and they're like this, and Polish people are immoral, and it's all bullshit, because what this is just the brainwashing that happens when war happens. This is the brainwashing and propaganda to set one person who's ethnically the same, right? Racially, ethnically, we're basically the same people. We live together, but it's like they brainwashed them at the time. This was around World War II, as the German and Soviet occupation was happening. They brainwashed these people to think of Polish people as like you're jealous of your brother because he has everything and you have nothing. And this was basically what it was. And then you had a bunch of killings happen, like men, women, and children, indiscriminately, not by cops, by regular people. They got brainwashed into doing this. Because of that level of hatred, you could only hate yourself that much. And that's what happened. You could look this up. It's Volhynia, Volhynia massacres. Those massacres, Polish people know what I'm talking about. That's what happened. And it's because of brainwashing against people that look just like your own, not a different race, not Americans going to Vietnam, not white people against black people. This comes down to self-hatred, and that's why race doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, because these cops are just fucking grown-up versions of their little abused boys, little versions of themselves who were not paid attention to as a kid, who were beaten by their parents, most of them. A lot of them were sexually abused by people within their family and in their community, and they grow up to be such pieces of garbage that they keep doing this and act out the violence that was done to them because they've never actually processed the trauma. They haven't had the courage to go through that work and deal with the abuse. So they buy into the master-slave mentality, and then they go carry out the violence to other people. And that's what a lot of these sadists and serial killers and psychopaths are. And that's why a lot of them are these young boys. They're fucked up. They're children. They're big grown up fat children with a gun. Except for the old cop. And why are they all young except for that one? Is because cops don't live to be a long age. They have some of the worst cardiovascular health of any occupation. They die early because of cancer and heart disease, because their body shuts down from all the immorality they're doing every day. And people don't get this. I'm talking to people, most of them, white people who to some level believe in police. Everybody fucking thinks that police needs to exist for us to have peace. But clearly we don't have no fucking peace out here. But people don't get this because it's not happening to them. But that's why these cops are dying young, because they do poisonous, toxic work. These are the same people that are going to put us into the cattle cars and drive them into the concentration camps, right? So if you know a police officer and he's not that, then you should reach him before the programming takes him to that level, because they're all a part of that satanic cult mindset, right? That's why they don't live that long. And you're only gonna get these fucking young kids to do this job because nobody else, all of them are sick and dying. The universe is not stupid and brainwashed like we are. It has an inherent defense system that people who do this kind of work are gonna die early, and they're gonna die suffering before we get to them. So that was the video. And listening to the researchers, patriots, these American patriots, think that police somehow is representative of America and freedom. I can't fucking believe it. Like, you see the Gadsden flag, "Don't tread on me." When I see that flag, I'm like, oh, I have an ally. This is a person that understands freedom and understands inherent freedom. And then they'll have the American flag with the blue line, or say, "We support the police." And this is just ridiculous. I heard Tucker Carlson. He seemed to be taking this approach too. These guys love police. Fox News, you guys love police, right? But these are the same people that told you that Islam was the enemy of America when Bush was in power, and you bought that, right? And you bought that, and now you're not really on my side. You're not on my side yet. It just looks, we just happen to have a common enemy. But if you were to take down the new liberal, cultural, Marxist, globalist influence, you would replace it with the old school, fucked up system of slavery and a racist system, because that's what it's always been in America. Police has always been the enemy. Police started as runaway slave patrols. Real people, real free men and women should not have a police officer, which is just a gang member operating within your community. You should not allow this. You should have more self-respect than this. And it's not American at all. You have to free yourself from the brainwashing, like I have, and like a lot of people have, that these people are the enemies, and we need to get as many people as we can out of the police so that there's no innocent blood being shed. You know what I mean? Because the police are not going to win this battle if it goes hot. No way. But I have to say that the human being behind the badge is not my enemy. I don't ultimately hate police at a fundamental soul level. I don't hate these people. What I hate is the ideology that you have taken, that satanic ideology, where what you believe makes you, through fear and cowardice, to kill and abuse people in the street. But we cannot allow that. So we are going to kill you. We're going to be much more barbaric than what these people did to Tyre Nichols. But we don't want to, because like I reformed myself to come out of a poisonous ideology and to stand up for freedom and morality. And that's what these people need to do who are within police. And a lot of people have turned around. Read Confessions of a Former Bastard Cop. These are not your friends, but the truth is, you could see these dudes that killed Tyre Nichols, they're driving their Dodge Charger. You know they love it. They love having the fucking gun on them, having a nice car. They take it to the car wash, get the car wash for free. These people are pieces of trash, and this video isn't even going to reach them. So you're just going to have to get treated like that in the street, because that's what's going to happen. But you have the free will choice to recover from it and separate from it, like a junkie. You got to recover. You got to admit you have a problem. And the reason I don't hate them is because I know all these people were abandoned and abused as kids. And I could see, I try not to, but it's like almost you don't want to see the innocence within them because they're doing such a terrible, horrific thing. But I see that little innocent kid inside them who's getting beat against the corner by their parents or whatever it was. Somebody who was just beaten up and raised, not raised, but brought up to think that they won't ever be shit. Say, oh, you won't be shit. You ain't shit. You're nothing. You're trash. I wish I didn't have you. People say this to their kids. I know they do. And then they grow up and look, and they're doing the same thing that happened to them. So this is our real enemy. Is the abuse. even the abuser has that within them that needs to access it and transform it so they could come out of that, so they don't identify themselves with the offender, with the abuser. And when that guy tells the old cop tells Tyre Nichols on the ground, he's like, "Oh, you ain't going nowhere. Oh, what'd you have? What'd you have?" This is like when the parents beat up their kids. They're beating up their kids. They're spanking their kids, and they're gonna say, "What'd you do wrong? What'd you do wrong?" As like, I don't even know what that is. It's like psychological abuse, shaming them to try to access them on some sort of like level of mental processing so they could visualize and admit their guilt, their sin that you say that they committed. And this is not even parenting. This is just normalized child abuse. That's what these guys were. I'll show the picture of them. You could see in their eyes they're lost little boys, and they grew up to be fucking cowards. And so you see how strong Tyre Nichols was. Oh man, wait till I get in the octagon in a cage with any one of them. You don't even know about the level of strength, because right away there are those of us. Man, it's such a level of strength. My whole being is filled with just the rage and the energy ready to fight for freedom. And I remember not only Tyre Nichols, I remember the other people I've seen, and I remember the people I've seen from those cartel videos, and I remember the people I've seen from the Holocaust documentaries and the movies about all the massacres. It's all getting built up, and I will be ready to access all that if I am faced with one of you and you do not want to back down from committing violence to me. It's gonna get for real. And you haven't even seen this, because all these people in the community, they are afraid of you. Even if these people are gang members hardened, they fear you on some level. I don't. I know you're just a little bitch to me. You're just a little coward, and you won't do shit to me. So you don't really want to go meet me when this happens. You better shoot me from behind, because it's gonna get for real. As long as there's police, there's always gonna be criminality, because this doesn't allow you to deal with the part of the society that is violent. And that's why police is like, you can't deal with the problem yourself. You're going to have to call them. You have to call a different gang to go deal with that gang. It's like you can't get revenge, or you can't get your stuff back from the Bloods. You have to go ask for the Crips and pay them to deal with that. And that's not how it needs to be to solve these societal issues of gangs and violence and domestic violence in the ghetto and all that. We need to get rid of police so that we can deal with the issue, not you, because you don't deal with the issue. You can't even deal with your personal issues because you're a bunch of little bitches. You know, the occult think tanks, right? The Klaus Schwabs that you don't know, that we don't know, the globalist occult social engineers, they've set up the institution of police in a way that you support your own enslavement. Because yeah, most of the time police does deal with some people who act like human trash. I understand this, but it's trash fighting with other trash, and you're supporting the side that you think is on your side. And that way you're always going to support the system of enslavement, because you're going to think, oh, we need these guys because who's going to deal with the trash? Well, the communities that created them. We need to deal with it. Just like those parents needed to really parent their children and not just fucking spank them and slap them and lock them in the corner and think that they're going to raise themselves to be upstanding human beings. You know, you got to break your programming for real. I know people are not all the way there, but you got to break the programming to the level that you see it's not just some cops, it's all cops. And if you want to prove me wrong, you know, you got to quit your job, because you know this is true. You know, these guys, I mentioned that they were more militarized. You know what they were wearing? It said on the back of their vest, Organized Crime Unit. And I'm like, how fucking ironic is that? Because that's what they are. They are an organized crime unit. And the occultists are telling you. That's why they write these things. It's not a joke. It's I'm not just seeing the connection. These guys pull up and they tell you they are the mob. They are the mafia. They're the organized crime unit. They're the cartels. And this is occult mockery. I saw on one of the vests on the front, it said "Trust your instincts." Now, who's that for? That's not for the cops. That's for Tyree Nichols. When you see the police, they want to tell you trust your instincts, and what that means is be afraid. They want you to be afraid, right? So when he's reaching for his gun, he's coming at you. He's trying to pull your hand. He wants you to trust the instinct to be afraid. Well, it's not gonna happen. I'm gonna trust the instinct to fight back. Yeah, for real. And people that have the "Don't Tread on Me" flag next to a blue line American flag, please just break your brainwashing. And I know you can't relate to a young black male. I know that's like crazy to you, but pretend like it's your brother or child, like the lawyer played by Matthew McConaughey said in that movie A Time to Kill. He said that's a movie about a black man played by Samuel L. Jackson who his daughter his daughter was raped by two white men, and then he killed them both, right? He got revenge. He killed them both, and then he's on trial for their murder. And the lawyer tells the jury, pretend, what if it was your daughter? What if it was your niece? Right? That's right. That's where you need to go. You need to go to that place to visualize that, because we're all human beings, and this slavery system is going to be dealing with us all, right? You discriminate based on race. They don't, right? They don't. They see all of us as their slaves. And like Samuel L. Jackson said in that movie, where the prosecutor asked him, did they deserve to die, right? As to say, they wanted to provoke him to say that their death was justified. And he said, yes, they deserve to die, and I hope they burn in hell. And that's what I say to these officers that were charged with murder. They deserve to die, and they will burn in hell. And not in an afterlife hell, here. This hell that they've helped create. The cops help create the hell every day. And you're going to burn here unless you turn away from your profession. And I know there are many members of police who are reachable and can be reformed. I'm a reformed criminal. I was a very immoral person for a couple years, for a long period of time. And everybody can still reform, right? But I quit what I was doing. You got to quit your job. That's it. And you can begin this journey. And if you don't, and this information has reached you, and that's the reason I do information like this, we got to reach them. We got to bring the truth in their face, and then either you can accept it over time, or you could just continue to be a pussy bitch-made coward, which is what you are. You guys are all little cowards. They're little pussies. You couldn't deal with one person like Tyree Nichols, who I heard had Crohn's disease. He was real skinny. Yeah, okay. Keep trying that shit, man. You can't deal with this because you're weak. The way you go about it in a pack, you're cowards. I don't know if I mentioned, just to conclude this video, that police are cowards. I just wanted to make sure I ended with that. Yeah, this was a long video. It needed to be made. People don't want to call the police out. I see there's a lot of defenders of police. And even the people who are against the police, I don't even know. You need to use that the rage within you for real. I don't think you're being harsh enough. I don't think we're being militant enough. Let's call them out. Let's call them out to their face. Because the more the only time, if we didn't make any noise, they wouldn't have body cams. We wouldn't get this video, right? There wouldn't be none of this. Without body cams, this was going on. This has been going on for hundreds of years and before, and nobody listened to people in the black community that said the cops do this to them. Yeah, they do this. They do this to us, and they're gonna do this to people like you. So go quietly or go out guns blazing. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for joining me, and we'll see you this next week on This Week in Tyranny.
You either vote for the mumps or the measles. Whether you vote for the lesser of two evils, you vote for evil. Politics and God are not equal, but the education they get on God is really lethal. People have more respect for a holy book than they do for a cow on a